Hi again, everyone. Nathaniel here, giving you my MPA 530 CAFR review multimedia discussion. So as a brief discussion overview, I'll be taking a look at the City of Marietta and its solvency in regards to its CAFR report. I'll be explaining the different solvency indicators that I use to figure that out. I'll also be comparing a budget report versus a CAFR and how those two things are contrasting as well. And then I'll wrap up the presentation. So in our Measuring the Fiscal Health of Municipalities article, there were a few different ways of using fiscal solvency indicators to measure the health of an organization and its financial resources and how it used its assets and liabilities to make decisions in the past and basically an evaluation of those actions. So with the ratio analysis, one of the ways that or things that it takes a look at is how the total assets are compared to or exceed or in some cases are underneath the future liabilities. So with the City of Marietta, you'll see here in the 2020 fiscal year that their total assets of 654 million 651,446 assets did exceed the total liabilities of $109.9 million. And then also their comprehensive positive change, which is basically the position of the city at the beginning of the year, and the net position of the city at the end of the year was also positive, with the city finishing at a net position of 558.4 million versus 550 at the beginning of the year. Another solvency indicator for measuring the fiscal health of municipalities in the article we read was the solvency test, which took a look at a bunch of different things, but I chose to focus on these five, starting with the total revenue per capita and the total expenditure capita, which were both positive signs, as it shows here the total revenues per individual were higher by almost $100 above the expenditures per capita. Another part of this is the cash ratio, which shows the relationship between the amount of cash and investments the city had on hand versus its current liabilities, which stood at a 10.5 to 1 ratio, which is also very good for the city. And also taking a look at a more comprehensive approach from years past was the long run solvency, which showed a positive growth rate over time of 14% in relation to the total liabilities during that time frame. And then obviously taking a look at taxation per capita, which was also in a very healthy spot, generating about $640 per individual on an annual basis. Well, if you were like me, you were probably saying in your approach to these two documents that are so similar but so different, why do we have these two? Well, in reality, they are quite different from each other. A budget is meant to provide a brief or vague overview of the financial statements of the previous year, while the CAFR is meant to include a very detailed and comprehensive documentation of the financial actions of the city in previous years. The budget is also mainly a forward planning document that highlights how the city plans to use its planned revenues for the next year. And the CAFR is more of a backwards looking document, which is focused on analyzing how the city's financial actions were effective or positive towards the city's financial health and growth. The budget also includes lots of projections, as I said before, of the revenues and expenditures. While the CAFR doesn't really include those, it's more meant to be a review and an analysis of the relationship of revenues and expenditures. And the budget is meant to highlight projects and several department plans, while the city is a little bit more comprehensive in its approach and is meant to take a look at just the financial actions that the city took as a whole. So that about wraps up my overview of the City of Meridia's 2020 fiscal year CAFR report. I found a lot of key things that showed a very healthy approach and outlook for the city as the next fiscal year rolled on with the ongoing pandemic, and then also taking a look at a budget versus CAFR report.